As a home coffee roaster, roast level is a really important topic for me. This is something that I have been focusing on and I have been paying very close attention to as I learn how to roast coffee. And my learning journey has been many years already roasting specialty coffee, and I'm just scratching the surface. And I'm having a good time along the way. And I hope you are too. But I want to talk to you about roast level and the importance of understanding really how we can measure roast level. And I hope to be able to do that with the help of DiFluid, the sponsor of today's video. DiFluid has reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in sharing my experiences with their roast analyzer. Of course I said yes. I'm really excited to give that product a try, and I wanted to share the experience with you along the way so you can see what a roast analyzer is, why something like this could be helpful to any coffee roasting person, whether you're a home coffee roaster or somebody who is actually roasting to sell coffee. So how do I measure roast level, and how do you measure roast level? That's really the first question I want to address. And then once we do that, I want to show you the DiFluid roast analyzer and talk about what you get when you get an analyzer and how to use it and the results. We're going to go through the whole thing here, so be sure to stick around for that. And more importantly, if you might not be in the market for a roast analyzer, there is a free resource that I'm going to share with you during the video here. And any home coffee roaster or anyone that is involved in the coffee hobby, whether you're brewing or whether you're roasting, this is a free resource that is really cool. And I think this could potentially change my approach and change the way that I enjoy my hobby. So this is a pretty cool resource, and we'll be sharing that too, so stick around for that. So how do I measure roast level? I asked the question to you. I'm going to tell you what I do. So first, I look at the color of the bean when I'm done roasting the coffee, or while it's roasting, I'm monitoring the bean color. That's really important because that is a huge indicator of roast level, the color of the bean. And then there is taste. When I drink the coffee that I've roasted and I taste it, I can discern a roast level, how dark the coffee tastes, how light it tastes, that type of thing. Of course, brewing has a huge factor on what we taste, but you can still get a sense of the roast level through what you taste. Both of those are kind of subjective, right? It's based on what we perceive, the color that we perceive, and the flavor or the notes that we taste. Those things are subjective. The way I perceive it might be different than you. But then the other two ways that I measure roast level are ending temperature, which is not necessarily a perception. It's a digit. It's a number. And then the fourth is moisture loss. And moisture loss is probably the most important, next to color, the most important thing that I'm focusing on right after I finish my roast and what it's going to take. And I'm correlating moisture loss with temperature, with color. All of these correlate together. So that's how I'm monitoring or determining my roast levels. And if you've got other ways that you're doing that, share those with me in the comments. And if you've got questions about why I'm using these 4 elements to determine roast level, ask those in the comments as well. So the game changer in all this is with the DiFluid product and other roast analyzers out there is we can ultimately digitize the color of the coffee. So it's no longer subjective. We can actually measure and calculate through technology the color of the coffee, and that's huge. That's a really big deal. So now we have more data to help us discern our roast level. The DiFluid Omni roast analyzer comes in a really durable case. It's got a pressure valve on it, and it seems pretty rugged. And I guess you'd want that because it's an electronic device. It was wrapped up and it had some films on it to protect it and things like that. But that's been removed because I've been using this roast analyzer. But this is definitely a really cool case. It's insulated. And this is it. This is the DiFluid Omni roast analyzer. It's got a glass display, LED. think it's 2.8 inches. This is a two-dimensional image sensor that's used for this. You've got a manual, warranty card, quick start guide, and a certificate of conformity. So it's basically a quality certificate. This is the base, and the base is actually the charging base, and it also is a particle analyzer. So the Omni is not just a roast analyzer, but it also is a particle analyzer. So when we put coffee grounds on this analyzer, it will vibrate and it will spread the grounds out, and it will measure the size in microns. And the range is 100 microns up to 2,500 microns. All right, next is the charging cord. This is the tray holder, and this is the tray. Now, this tray has a deep well and a shallow well. So basically the coffee beans go in this deeper side and the grounds go in this side. This is a scoop to scoop out the beans. This is a brush. It's really important to keep your equipment clean, and so they recommend that you keep this clean, brushing off any grounds, because there's going to be coffee grounds getting on that. Same with the underside of the DiFluid analyzer itself. And then there is this little spoon. This is a real tiny spoon. And this spoon is used to scoop up the coffee grounds and then put one scoop onto the analyzer. This is used to flatten the beans or to smooth the coffee grounds. This is the calibration tool. Every time we use this Omni, we're going to go ahead and we're going to calibrate. This is the calibration color for this particular unit, 44.6 on the Agtron scale. And we'll go ahead and calibrate. So that'll be the next thing that we do. But this is what you get when you purchase a DiFluid Omni. And I've been using this equipment. It's very well thought out. Every item in this case has been used. So really well thought out product. This has a magnetic bottom on it. And what we're going to do is set this plate down, set the Omni on top, and you can just see how it's kind of grabbed onto it. Power on the unit. And this is how it always starts up. And you're going to swipe to the right, and you've got four choices here on the Omni. You can either do a roast analyze, a particle analyze, or we're going to calibrate it, or you can go into settings. So for example, here are the settings. So whether we're going to be dealing with beans, we can choose different standards. We can also adjust the silver skin sensitivity on this. This is really cool because if you've got a lot of chaff or silver skin that's attached to the beans, you can adjust this sensitivity so that it's not influencing the analysis of the bean. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to calibrate. And start. And that's it. Okay, so the Omni is calibrated. That step is done. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to measure some beans out. So the idea here is to overfill the tray, and then we use the scraper here to level off the beans. So we want them to be flat as possible. We may throw some beans back on. Just kind of do that. Tap it and get it as level as possible. And so that's going to be our sample. Okay, here's the DiFluid Cafe. We're going to go ahead and go to the bean down in the left corner. And you'll see that I have a coffee, green coffee, that I have went ahead and put into the system here. So if I tap on this, let me see. Yep, there we go. So this is going to hold all the information about this green coffee. Basically, its origin, where it's from, the elevation, harvest date, and so on. You can also include, some notes in there, and I put a few comments about the size of the beans. So this is a place where you can do that, the process that it is. And so this is the Kambata Natural. This is an Ethiopian coffee that I got, I think, from Coffee Bean Corral. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this. So I'm going to go back into this bean, and we're going to use this as part of our measurement. And then I'm going to take the DiFluid Omni Roast Analyzer, set it on top, turn the power on. We're connected to the Omni, and we're going to hit roast, and now we're doing a test, and it's analyzing. And there we go. So we did the first test, and it came back as a 66.5 is the average for the Agtron result. Now, what you see on the screen on my phone compared to here, the phone has got a lot more detail. And that's something I wanted to mention. The people at DiFluid, since I've started using this, they've already updated this app. They're constantly working on this and making improvements. This is awesome. This is a really cool feature. So I'm going to do another test. So now I'm getting a second sample. 66.5 was the first test, and 66.5 is the second test. So if we were to scroll up, you'll see here the different colors that the analyzer found. There's different shades of this bean that the analyzer found. Now you can take a look at these beans and see. Not sure how focused that's going to be. It's not a dark roast. There's a little bit of silver skin right there. It's a pretty even roast too. But if you look at the chart, they found variations in the bean color. So it's very sensitive. But overall, the average for the color is 66.5, which is classified as medium light. And that's because I'm using the SCA scale for the way that I classify what my roast level is. If you were to use the common, you might see French roast, City Plus, Italian roast, those types of things. That's the common. This is the SCA. You can set that in the settings here on the Omni Analyzer, and you can use whatever standard you want to use for what you're calling your roast level and the Agtron range for that standard even. Okay, all right, next is the grind. Just using a hand grinder, and I'm going to grind about 3 grams, I think, is what they require, and that should be enough for the sample. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to use the shallow side of this. So this is about 3 grams of ground coffee. I'm going to level this out, and now we're going to go ahead, set that on top. We're going to go back, and we're going to connect. Power on. We are connected. And now we're going to run another test. Okay, the test is running. And now we've got 78.5. Now before it was 63 or whatever the percentage was. So the higher the number, the lighter the coffee. And so it was a medium light roast. Here it's showing light roast, and it's 78.5. Now, this is normal to see this. This is something that is, it's what it is when you are analyzing a whole bean compared to ground coffee, because more of the bean is exposed to the light as it's being analyzed when it's in its ground form compared to the whole bean. The whole bean always looks darker, and then when you grind the coffee and analyze it again, you'll see that it reveals a lighter number. And it's not because it's lighter on the inside, it's because more of the bean surface is now being exposed to the light and being analyzed by the light. It's getting a better reading. So 78.5 is a light roast, and here are the deviations by percentage based on the numbers that you see here. The bean samples on the left is the outer ring, and the ground sample is in on the inner ring. And so we'll go ahead and we'll just do another test. And there you go. It's 0.2 different on the second reading than the first reading. So there are going to be some really minor variations, but it is a pretty accurate and consistent device. Okay, so now that we've completed the color analysis, we're going to do a particle analysis on this, because this is going to help us understand the size of our grind, and it's ultimately going to show whether it's a consistent grind, and it's going to also help us dial in our brew when we use this information in the DiFluid Cafe and the brewing side of the app. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and remove this, and again we're going to clean this all off. We're going to use this sample here. Now you're supposed to just take one scoop, set it in the middle. We're going to set the DiFluid on top. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do this without the app. I'm going to turn this on, swipe to the right, and these are our options. And we're going to choose particle. When I do that, the test is going to run. That white circle was being vibrated, and so the grounds were shaking and dispersing all over the white area. So let's take a look at that, and we'll talk about what we see here. But this is what happened to the grounds. They were dispersed, and the Omni was able to visually see all of this and discern particle size. And so this is what it's displaying. It's displaying the average number of 823 microns. It's also helpful to take a look at this. I've got quite a bit of variation here, and this is a really good grinder. So just because you see variation, I mean, this is normal to see particle variations like this. What I don't know is to what percentage. So if you know, share those in the comments as well. By the way, notice it says particle here. Omni knows that we ran a particle test. It's displaying it there. And it's also telling us the size of our grind. It's not a fine grind, it's a medium grind, and the ratio and how many particles it counted. 1,301 particles that are on this sample. That's pretty amazing that it was able to read it like that so quickly. That's really impressive. By the way, here's my battery level, and I've been using this all week. So that's definitely, it's got some battery to get you through quite a few tests. Because we're getting the data that we're getting, as I mentioned earlier, it's no longer subjective. Oh, you know, my grind size is about the size of table salt or beach sand, something like that. This is giving numbers. This is digitizing that measurement, and that way now it's something that is repeatable, and it's something that can be shared, and it's measurable. So those are really, really important points. So back to the app here, this particle size of 823 is where I would go ahead and I would move this cursor to 823, and that's approximately a grind size of 98 on the King 6. And that is just the first step in the brew side of things, which we'll do on a future video. But I wanted to share that with you, that the particle analyzer did a great job. I'm really pleased with that. DiFluid, I'm impressed with this product, and the app works really well with this product. So for the home roaster, or for anyone watching this video that's interested in learning more about this app, I'll tell you what, this is just the beginning. The fun part, this is fun, but the fun part is when we get to the brewing right here, because you don't need the Omni to use the app for the brewing side of things. The nice thing about this app is it works really well in the ecosystem of DiFluid. So DiFluid has this roast analyzer, they have a scale called the microbalance, and they have a refractometer, the R2, that will measure total dissolved solids in the actual brew. And on top of all that, this app will actually help us brew better. It'll help us make recipes with coffee ratios, water ratios, all of that. And it will give you a graphic, basically a graphic of your pour, kind of like watching rate of rise descend on a roast. You're going to see your pour increasing on this graph depending upon your brew method that you're using. It's quite impressive, and you're going to see this on some future videos, but this is a gem. This was a surprise that I really didn't know much about at all when we first started talking about the DiFluid products. I didn't really even have the cafe app on my mind, but now that I'm using it, I'm using this while I'm brewing my coffee. I'm using this to dial in some of my brews, and it's really cool. So I would encourage you, it's a free download for the Android or the iPhone. Go for it. I would highly recommend it. You can check it out. It's free. I'll have a link in the description where you can get that. One thing I didn't mention is that if you're roasting the same profile over and over and over, the DiFluid can help you with consistency for each roast. It's a quality control measure, right? That's what professionals are using it for. But really, more importantly, is professionals and many home coffee roasters are using different roast profiles based on the bean that they're roasting, the origin, the process, or just their own personal preferences. And the roast analyzer is going to help with that. This is a tool to help with consistency, to know that we're on track, and that when I'm doing this particular bean, this particular profile, the color doesn't lie. The color is going to tell me whether I've got the same end temperature, the same roast level, which is 80% of the roast itself. This is a win-win for me because it's giving me more information, it's more helpful. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Share those in the comments, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great week roasting. We'll see you next time.